Happy New Year and welcome to episode number 31 of the Crisis Intelligence Podcast. Today is January 4th, 2015. I'm Melissa Agnes, and this podcast is brought to you by Agnes Day. Let's talk crisis intelligence. Hi, Whitney. Welcome to the show. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us about what you do?
My name is Whitney Gibson, and I'm a partner at the law firm Vorey, Sater, Seymour & Pease. I head up our firm's Internet Defamation Group, and we have about 7 attorneys that work on these cases full-time across the country, and we help businesses, professionals, individuals remove defamation from the internet, try and identify people that are engaging in reputation and defamatory attacks against our clients, and try and help them with those problems.
And you see a lot of this. Internet defamation is a big, big issue these days for organizations, eh?
Yeah, it's become really a really big problem given the protections in the United States that provide, based on the First Amendment, that provide very strong free speech protections and allow people to say a very broad array of things, and not get in trouble for it. And also just because of the internet and the ability to speak anonymously, it provides a platform for anybody that wants to cause damage to a business or an individual can pretty easily do so by going online and saying very hurtful things about the person that they're going after. And a lot of times they will cross the line and they will say things that are defamatory. And as we all know on the internet, you can put things in places where they reach a very broad audience very quickly, and the stuff can remain there permanently. And so as a result, it can cause very serious damage to businesses. And so because of all those factors, I think there's a lot of people and businesses that are struggling with how to deal with these problems. So we've worked really hard over the last 4 years or so to try and come up with solutions as best as we can, given the current state of laws and policies that are out there, to help people deal with those problems.
So we're definitely going to dive into all of that today, and I'm really looking forward to it. But let's start at the beginning. So What's the difference between defamation and free speech, and what are the clear signs? Because I think that there's a lot of confusion between where that line is drawn. So how can people really, at a glance, quickly, without being defamation attorneys and specializing it, how can they really make sure that what they're dealing with is truly defamation?
Yeah, I think the main test is what the person's saying about me or my business false, and does it represent a false fact? Just because you disagree with their opinion, okay, an opinion in itself is not really defamatory, but it has to be something that is stating or implying a false fact. So So I think the two things you need to look at primarily are, one, is this thing true or false? And two, is it a fact? Is it representing a fact, or is it an opinion? Like on the opinion part, if someone says, I don't like McDonald's hamburgers, or I did not think that the attorney provided good service, that's an opinion. But if I say that the attorney fraudulently overbilled, or McDonald's put poisoning in its hamburger, those are facts. And so, those are what can be considered defamation under the law in the U.S. And so I think those are kind of the two main questions that I would ask in trying to decide whether you're going to be able to support a claim and use the claims for defamation as a tool to help you.
Okay. And so if an organization has discovered that they are being attacked online and the attack is defamatory, what should be their immediate next step?
Well, I think the first thing you got to do is you got to try and gather as much information you can as possible about the attack. There is not a one response that you apply to every single defamatory attack on the internet, because there are so many different levels of attack. They come from different people. They can cause different damages. And so part of your response is going to be dictated by the specific facts of the attack. So you need to move as quickly as you can to try and figure out things like who posted, who's behind the attack. Is it someone who's sophisticated, has a lot of abilities to spread information around the internet quickly, or is it just a disgruntled customer who just wrote one false review? I mean, those are two different types of situations. You also want to think, is this something that is really going to cause my business damage, or has the potential to cause my business damage? Is it something that is going to come up and rank high in the search engines, or is it something that very few people will see? I think you need to try and gather those facts as quickly as possible. And then what I typically do is I go through the list of different options on what, that there are for responding to the attacks. And ultimately, once I go through those, I try and balance, say, all right, what is the cost of taking the action here? And I try and weigh that against, what is the potential harm, what is the likelihood of success. And once I balance those factors out, usually you can tell by going down a list which is the best response. So, for example, if somebody comes in and, is being attacked on the internet, I'll gather the facts, and then I'll go down my list up for doing nothing, just letting the attack remain there, using the carrot approach by reaching out to the person who's committing the attack and trying to resolve their complaint, getting them to remove the statements, trying to rectify the relationship with them and make them happy and get them to stop the attack. Or I may take more of the stick approach and send them a cease and desist letter, or send them a draft complaint. And there's a list of different things. Sometimes I have to go get a court order to say that the information is defamatory, because I know on the website it's posted that's the only way that I'm ever going to get that information removed. So I kind of go down those different lists of responses and see which one best applies given the facts of the situation.
When the first initial questions that you said that you have, that organizations, professionals need to ask and to determine whether or not to move forward, do you see that some organizations or some professionals, they might say, oh, well, it's one comment or it's one blog post, for example, and it's not going to go anywhere, so we shouldn't put any time, resources, money, energy to it? But do you see that? Because I would think that often that can be the wrong choice, because you may think that it's just one disgruntled customer who's not going to have an impact, and then the reverse happens and it has a very damaging impact. So what are some some tactics or strategies that people can take so that they don't make the wrong decision right away? Because time is of the essence, especially when you're dealing with the legal side of defamation.
Yeah, I think you want to look at, is this a situation that has the potential to turn into a really bad situation? And if it does, then you want to mitigate the risk that occurs. So if this is on a website, like there's a website that's well-known, a rip-off report. If there's a posting on a rip-off report, that may be on your 10th page of Google. But if you do a little bit of research and you see their domain authority, and you see that over time, that is very likely going to end up on your first page of Google. Okay, you want to make sure you take action early on. One of the biggest mistakes I see people make is they will sit there and say, well, this is on my, not visible. It's on the 10th page of Google. I'm not going to do anything. And then by the time it moves up, their statute of limitations is passed, and they don't even have the ability to get the court order they need to get it de-indexed. So that's one situation I always try and advise people of. And then I think the other type of situation that you were kind of describing and that we hear a lot about is, one person comes out and starts criticizing a brand or saying, there was an example with Procter and Gamble where a woman was talking about the diapers and causing a rash on the children, and not much done was done to address it. Not much done was really done to get ahead of the message, to try and counter the message, and all of a sudden, one mom on Facebook, that was picked up by so many other moms that the thing went viral. And by the time Procter was able to address it, it was pretty out of control. So I do think that as an organization, you want to monitor very closely what's being said about you online and look for those situations, especially in social media, where somebody that is has a wide audience viewing what they say, or somebody that is saying things that if that started to spread around a little bit, as a business that would get very scary reputationally for you. And look for those situations, and if you can, try and, for the most part, swoop in and resolve them. And often for businesses, it's resolving them in a positive manner. Swoop in and talk to the mom that claims the diapers are causing rashes. Explain to the mother that all the science and the testing they've done, and offer free diapers and free shipping and whatever you can to try and alleviate those concerns, because the business really needs to think about just the potential damage that can be caused by those things spreading virally. So, I don't know, does that answer your question, Melissa?
Oh, it definitely does.
Okay.
And I would add actually that a lot of times, the one with the diapers.
Yeah.
Isn't necessarily defamation. It doesn't sound like it's defamation. It sounds like it was really a reputational crisis that they didn't catch early on. And sometimes professionals, they'll go, or they're advised actually often to say, okay, well, what's the influence of that person? How many followers do they have, and who are they talking to? But I don't like that advice, because if you look at the case of the mom, maybe she didn't have a big following. Maybe she wasn't one of those very big, mommy bloggers with these enormous reputations and influence. However, her situation was relatable and highly emotionally impacting, because you're talking about a parent's child. So, and that's a key indicator as well, that organizations tend to, maybe they'll look more at influence rather than how relatable, how catchy, how emotionally relevant and impacting is this particular situation, not necessarily how many followers does the person have, because it's the relatability and the emotional factor that's going to send things going viral. Not necessarily, you can send something going viral with 10 followers.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I can see that. And a lot of times, you were saying, well, it may not be defamation. Well, just whether something's defamation or not does not always dictate how you respond. The business probably, frankly, if you ask them, I bet they would say, look, these diapers don't cause rashes. We did all this testing. So they probably would have thought it's defamation. But that doesn't always mean, just because defamation, that the legal approach is the correct response. One of the things I really try and do for, and especially in the internet space, is for defamation is not just look at it from the legal angle, but look at it from a crisis management perspective. Look at it from a PR perspective, because, what do you, to go in and file a lawsuit against one mom who says something's a rash, that's not really going to be the best approach. It probably is going to be more of a crisis management type approach. So I would encourage, you want to think whether something's defamatory or not, but I think you really need to either have somebody who has the capabilities or have a team that has the capabilities to look at responding to these from a legal, PR, crisis management, business sense solutions that, you put all those together and make the best decision for the business, rather than just looking at it through a scope of one specialist. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. And one of the reasons why I respect and admire you so much, Whitney, is because as an attorney, you don't get so many attorneys, you don't get so many specialized professionals giving that kind of advice that's saying, hey, I may not be the right solution for you. You always just have the organization's best interest in mind, and which is why you and I work so well together.
Yeah, well, the way to accomplish that, lawyers are not permitted ethically to share legal fees. And so what you don't see a lot of lawyers working under one roof with a PR person or a crisis management person. So, there's a lot of just informal, relationships or people that I work with, such as, I've brought you in on cases, or, I have a cyber investigator that I'll often turn to, or, other PR folks. And it's been kind of fun, people, I think we've kind of almost have a small group of people across the country that when we have a pretty big crisis situation, it's fun to just get everybody together. Everybody's in different companies, and just have, I think you need to have an honest relationship, like what's in the best interest of the client here. And that's all you ask. And, I just think there's too many people out there especially for these online issues, that they're just trying to sell a product. They're trying to lead a client down a solution or down an approach that really, pockets their bottom line, as opposed to really is what the client needs. So no, I think it's something interesting about the online issues right now, and I think it's really important to the success of how we've handled them.
Absolutely. And actually, you mentioned, and it kind of goes with this, you mentioned statute of limitations earlier. And I think that this is an important issue because so often, online reputation management is a term that everybody is familiar with. There's companies out there who are with megaphones that are, preaching online reputation management and their tactics. And so it's often we see organizations that are dealing with internet defamation that turn to the online reputation management firm because they think that they're going to help them. And then you can probably tell us how many times it's happened to you where somebody's finally come to you after so long of working with the ORM firm, the online reputation management firm, and then comes to you and you say, well, I'm so sorry, but your statute of limitations is either out or almost out, which means that it's going to be even more challenging. And I think that that's it's really, really important to get the message out there that, and I'm not, putting online reputation management firms out down. They have their purpose, but it's important for organizations and professionals to realize that it's not just about pushing things down. When it is defamation, there are legal routes that you can take that are in your benefit, that cost less, that take less amount of time, and that are more concrete, such as subpoenaing the search engines and having the defamation removed. So what is the statute of limitations? And I guess what would you add to what I just said?
Yeah, in most states it's 1 year. In some states it's 2 years, and in very few it's 3. But yeah, just the nature of this, I think people want to try and push the information down the search engines, and we receive calls weekly from people that say, I've done that over time, the information's creeped back up, I now want to try the removal route, just get it completely removed. And I say, well, your options are more limited here because the statute of limitations expired. They say, well, I wish I would have known that and I acted earlier. So a lot of the online reputation management companies are not lawyers, and so they don't typically advise their clients of that, and the clients aren't aware of that. And that's just an example of, because the market is kind of divided in helping people, how sometimes the clients are being damaged. So I think clients need to, people being injured by this need to understand, talk to an attorney, get a sense of what your statute of limitations, what your options are now, and what they would change and how they'll change over a year after you've used the online reputation management service. On the online reputation management, I do know that it's become a lot more difficult to push things down as Google's changed its algorithms over the years. That was a very big practice in industry. of using different techniques to try and move things down, and a lot of people do not really do that as much anymore. There's other tactics they try. So like you, I'm not going to say that that all online reputation management is bad. I just think that if I was a consumer, I would really ask for to see the results, ask for guarantees, and what you're seeing a lot now is that companies are looking more to try and get the stuff off the internet. And like one of the most common techniques we have is we'll get a court order saying that the information is defamatory, and you can give that to most websites and the search engines, and you can scrub it off the internet. And you don't have to worry about pushing it down, it doesn't come back, you're done. And that's become very popular for a lot of people to use that service. And just a lot of other whether it be contacting the websites, cease and desist letters, contacting hosts, contacting the search engines, using other techniques to try and get removal. You're seeing a lot more removal companies instead of push down companies. And I think that is where a lot of the future is heading, because Google is not going to want people manipulating their search engines over time. They're going to make that very difficult, increasingly difficult. So I think that clients really need to look at make sure that there's no removal options before they embark on a big campaign just to try and change the search results.
And when you get something removed from Google or from the search engines, how, it's a process, right?
Yes.
So how can you be sure that that same attacker isn't going to bring it back, or can you?
Well, and you don't use that tactic always if someone's like on an ongoing attack where you are going to, you may sue them, you may put pressure on them, show them that you're going to come after them for lots of money, and then get an agreement from them not to attack anymore and stop. If you have a situation where somebody has gone anonymously and posted something on a ripoff report or on a complaints board or PIS consumer, the vast majority of the time, they post it once, they said their piece, they're gone. You can sometimes get a court order by going and you don't know who posted it. You try to figure it out. You can't figure it out. So you can ask courts to file the complaint. You can ask them to serve by publication, where you serve the defendant's screen name by the placement of notice of the lawsuit in like a local newspaper, or by putting it on the internet. And then you wait for let's say 60 days to expire, or whatever the period is in the jurisdiction you're in. And then once it expires, you can just ask the court, give me the court order through a default judgment, it's called, and you get the court order. And so there, you're not even, you're not even having to litigate really. You're getting the court order. Now you can take it to the search engine. So there's times where it's not as difficult, and you can, it's not always as difficult as going through long litigation to actually get the court order. In those types of situations, once they've seen that you're going to hire a law firm, that you're going to take this seriously, people don't really want to be embroiled in litigation or those messes. And so most of the time, they won't attack you anymore. I tell people it's a risk, but we've been doing these cases for hundreds of cases over the last 4 years, and hardly any have we had where we've taken it down and then the attackers come back and decided they want to post more. Okay.
And actually, with that in mind, for people out there listening, who's usually behind defamation attacks? And I know that it could be a number of different people and situations, but looking back at your experience, what would you say is a big norm or a big majority?
Ex-employees, employees that work for companies, they understand that the company really cares about its online reputation and its online reviews. They get terminated or they're mad at the company, and they'll go out when they leave and they'll start posting a lot of false online reviews, or they'll start just attacking the company on complaint sites, or they'll create their own websites. Competitors sometimes will go and post false reviews about businesses, their competition, in order to lower their competition's review ratings, and with the hopes that that'll increase their business. You'll see people that are just upset over personal relationships, ex-wives, ex-husbands, ex-boyfriends, ex-girlfriends, people that are in business relationships together. Those business relationships sever, and they're really upset. And one party will, they'll go online and start trashing their ex-partner. You do have disgruntled customers. You have sometimes bloggers that are looking to get attention and maybe even get ad revenue from ads on their websites. They will cross the line in order to try and get as much attention as they can to their blog, and they'll start laying out fraud. They'll allege scams and frauds by companies. So those are some of the examples that we have. We see.
It's a big list.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but at least it gives professionals an idea of, maybe they didn't think, for example, that they're a past employee or a future past employee was such a big risk, and maybe, hopefully, those of you listening out here, listening to us right now, will think, oh, hey, I didn't think about that, so maybe we should kind of put just some thought, not worry about it, but put some thought to protect yourself against it. Yeah,
there is some interesting developing law right now on what kind of contractual agreements employers can enter into with employees as they're leaving, or ex-employees, to prohibit them from going online and saying things. And you have to be very careful on how you draft those to make them enforceable under the current law, but there are ways you can do that to make them enforceable.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so that's one thing that I think employers need to think about today. Do you want this? Recognizing the platform and how easy it can destroy your business. Do you want employees with inside information that are probably going to be upsetting your business going out there with the ability to be able to do that, or do you want to try and limit that? And I think a lot of employers should probably look at trying to limit that. Another interesting issue that I'm seeing businesses really struggle with right now is how do you deal. They're really getting a lot of extortionist type threats from customers who just say, give me a refund or else I'm going to destroy you online. Give me my money back, or give me an extra product. Because a lot of times the customer knows that for the business, it's probably a lot more in the business interest to just satisfy this individual customer. And I had a lot of businesses calling me like, how do you handle this? What do you do when people are making these threats? And businesses have different feelings on it. Some want to say, I'm not going to allow somebody to extort me in that way. I'm going to tell them, look, I'm not giving you anything. Others say, it's not worth it. It's just not worth it to me. I'm going to give them what they want, and I'm going to save my online reputation. But the police, law enforcement, they aren't going to be treating that as extortion. They just don't view complaints by civil they don't view threats to post online right now as extortion, when I think really it is. It's just, if they responded to every one, they wouldn't really have the resources to do anything else.
Yeah, that makes sense. But on the other side, I think that's interesting, and it's scary, and it's very disgusting for somebody to do. But what do you normally recommend for organizations faced with that type of extortion situation?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you got to have very well thought out in advance policies of what you think is in the best interest of your business. And you got to think through, can I make the customer happy and still not really hurt my profits? And if you can make them happy, just given the current state of the laws and the ability with which people can hurt and damage and attack you online, I would advise my brother or friend who had a business, I would say, have a customer service policy and representative that was very effective at turning disgruntled customers and turning customers into happy customers, and give them the ability to make those people happy with things like refunds, free shipping, and other items. So I don't mean this. I guess I'm saying you may have to cave into some of those people. I have just seen too many businesses that have really been hurt by disgruntled customers that, if you can make them happy without really hurting your bottom line too much, go ahead and do so. A lot of businesses will say, well, but if I do this, then everyone's going to call in. Well, not everyone most people don't want to call in and make those sort of threats. I mean, I don't think it's going to turn into, people calling in every day and demanding those things. It's not like everyone's talking and saying, hey, go call this company, then you'll get it back.
You'll get all kinds of free stuff.
Yeah. I don't think, but that's something you have to assess. But, what do you think, Melissa? I don't know. You advise companies on this sort of stuff just given what you see, what do you think they should do?
I agree that they need to have a policy. This is something that needs to be thought out because, unfortunately, you're right. We're seeing it more and more, and customers they're starting to understand the power of their individual and collective voices, and so we need to look at these risks. But I agree with you that it's not normal for something like that to escalate in the sense that somebody's going to come back and ask for more and more and more, or like you said, communicate with 1,000 or more people to come and extort you for this type of merchandise or free stuff or whatever it may be. So in most cases, so let me start. You need to have a policy. You need to think about this risk and how you would handle it, because in the moment when you're very frustrated with this type of person is not when you want to start thinking about how you're going to deal with them, because then emotion's going to set in and it's going to have an impact, and it might not be a good impact. So think it through, have the policy and procedures, train your customer service reps and get them to understand what the policy is, and then in most cases give it to them and try to consider them a customer loss type thing. So I agree with you there. Go ahead.
Nope, I agree. I think that's about as best as they can do right now.
Yeah. Like I said, I do think it's a disgusting situation, but it's a reality and it's a risk. So it's something that needs to be identified. You and I give a lot of trainings, webinars, presentations to in-house counsel. We do it sometimes together. We do it as well as individually. And in my experience, I find that, I do a lot of trainings with in-house counsel to get them to have a seat at the crisis management table. But in order to get them to have a seat, they also need to understand, things like the real-time news cycle and online and reputation, and how these types of things impact reputation. So the court of law versus the court of public opinion, which is something that a lot of in-house counsel are interested in learning more of. But when it comes to one of the common questions that I get from in-house counsel is how can we even know, because this stuff, defamation, all of these, online privacy issues, all of these things, they're continually evolving. And it's so hard for in-house counsel who has so much already on their plates in protecting the organization on a legal front for all of their, legal tasks and responsibilities, to really keep track of all of these ever-evolving things. So when it comes to defamation, let's narrow in on defamation. What should legal counsel or in-house counsel know?
Well, I think you and I have talked about this. I think for a lot of companies, especially the bigger companies, you need to have a system and a policy in place that, you start off and you have to identify potential risks to the business. What are things that, if occurred online, could really damage your business? If someone called your business a ripoff or scam and that was on the front page of your Google, would that be a big deal or not? If your review rating dropped significantly, would that be a big deal or not? If on social media, Twitter, 100,000 followers, potential customers or an audience you care about started to say that your tacos or your bags of chips were contaminated with poison or something. Identify the risk to your business, but then you need to have the monitoring in place that looks for those risks. You obviously can't look at every bad thing that's ever said about your company, but I think you need some type of monitoring program that, on a very as real-time basis as possible, detects negative things that are out there about you, and then probably either a vendor or a lower level employee, somebody to sift through that can identify for the in-house counsel or the person responsible for the company situations that can potentially cause damage. So, I don't know. It's not like you want to go out there and say, I'm just going to go look for everything that's defamatory. I think the better way to think of it is look for risks, look for things that can hurt you, and then once those things are identified that potentially hurt you, then they need to be elevated to somebody or a group of people that quickly that have enough experience and training to be able to analyze the situation, obviously gather the facts, but then make a decision about how to respond. And part of that response, in thinking through the response, is looking at different options, knowing the different things you can do to respond to the online problems. And one of those would be, if this is defamation, what are my legal options here? And does those different legal options or the things that I can do because it's defamatory, do those stand out as one of the best options among the other options here? And so I don't know if that totally answers your question, but I think you've got to kind of break this out into steps and say, what are my risks? What are my things that could damage to me? I need a way to detect those as early as possible. I then need somebody to come in and a way to find out when those occur, find out information about those quickly, such as who is doing the attack, is it going to cause damage, does it have potential to spread, and then I need somebody who quickly can take that information and decide on a response to the company, and that person needs, or that team, some companies, it may be a lawyer, PR person, crisis person, company executive, that all look at, quickly call a meeting, look at this issue that was identified as a risk and is now occurring, and decide whether they have the experience in the room to make the decision. If not, you can get an outside consultant that has that just does this every day for a living, and make the response decision. And so I think that's the steps you need to go through. But when you're going through that and you get to that list of decisions, where I come in a lot is, I try to, like I said, and I know you do the same, is look at it from all angles. But there are a lot of things that we can do when it's defamatory with the U.S. court system that just give us other tools to use in the right situation.
I think that's really, really good advice and really important advice. And do you find that in-house counsel, again, they have so much on their plate, do you find that a lot of them, or many of them, that the average amount of them, or the most of them, understand or even realize, first of all, of course they know what defamation is, but how the possibilities out there that are possible, or the options that are possible to them in pursuing legal action, or the different, because the other thing with defamation is you don't want to be too harsh. You'll be able to tell this story better, but there was a recent crisis, PR crisis, or reputation crisis, that happened to a company because they got their attorney to send a cease and desist letter to a negative poster, and it wasn't actually defamation, and of course that went viral. So you definitely, attorneys and actually not just attorneys, but everybody dealing with defamation or these types of online attacks need to understand, like you've been saying, the different options available to you, and to take the right course of action, so not to escalate the situation further. So do you feel that in-house counsel is adequately prepared with those options? Because they're ever evolving, they're always changing, the laws are evolving, the risks are evolving, and like I keep saying, they have so much on their plate already, so they're not specialized in defamation.
Yeah, I think it's an area, there's not rule books that can tell you exactly how to respond to every online defamation or reputation attack. mean, you and I handle these every day, so you start to get a really good just sense of judgment that we apply to these cases, and you feel like you can really tell in most cases how our solutions are going to impact. And yeah, there may be risks. I send cease and desist letters all the time, and I don't get them posted. They don't make the situation worse. I think a lot of people go around, and in-house counsel will think, well, I can file a defamation lawsuit or not, and I can do a cease and desist letter. And I've heard a lot of stories about how if I do that, it may just blow everything up and make the situation a lot worse. But those situations you hear about have facts that if I saw them would say, yeah, that is going to make the situation worse. I mean, going against, some customer that has a legitimate complaint that just said an opinion, I wouldn't send a cease and desist letter to them, because in the court of public opinion, the company's going to look like a big bully. But I send cease and desist letters all the time to where we catch a competitor that is saying false things online, or we catch an ex-employee, where the company looks more like the victim instead of the bully. I think those are fine. The lawsuits, it doesn't mean we file lawsuits a lot. And a lot of times we do them so we can negotiate with the defendant to get a takedown of the stuff and get the information removed. And it's a different. It's not like traditional defamation lawsuits where you get engaged in long protracted litigation. So I really think this area is just a new area that has so many nuances. The solutions are so fact dependent that unless you do this on a really regular basis, it's probably something, and I know this may sound biased, but it's probably something where you do want to consult with someone who sees these a lot, because it's the only way you're going to get a really good decision that's based on experience.
I don't think it's biased. I think it's honest.
Yeah.
I think it's truth. Yeah. And okay, so I've got a question because so right now online reviews have a very, very heavy impact on reputation. That's what they're there for. But there are review sites, online review sites that like Ripoff Report, where it's like impossible to have, whether it's defamation or not, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's almost impossible to have these online reviews removed, correct?
Yep.
So how do companies go about dealing with this in prevention as well as in management?
Yeah, with online reviews, I think, and I've done a lot of studying and analysis on what companies can do that doesn't create a lot of ethical and legal risk. And I really think that what companies should do is have a program that ensures they're getting a high volume of reviews, but they can't set it up in a way where the program is leading towards more positive reviews than negative. So you can't have a program where you're just asking people that are happy with you to go and post reviews, because I think then you are kind of creating a false advertising type situation. But I think that you don't want to be, especially for smaller businesses, you don't want to have an online review site that has very few number of reviews, because then if somebody, like you said, can easily go post something false, or even you get a couple just legitimate negative, that kills your online review rating. So what you want is you want a large sample on there. So one or two or three don't really hurt you. I think that's how you mitigate your risk in the online review space, is by, you could have a program that sends all your customers emails and asks them to leave feedback and point them in the review sites. You can give them cards, ask them to do the same, and send it to all of them. You may get some negative, but you're really eliminating the risk that one or two bad people can really destroy your rating by doing that. So I think if you build up that stable, you put yourself in a position where you're not going to have your online review rating and your business really hurt by a couple bad actors out there. If it does occur, you can. We help people with online review cases all the time where we convince the person who reviewed it to take it down. I know a lot of companies right now have policies set up where they quickly respond to the negative online reviewers. There's studies that show if you do that within 72 hours, there's about a 90% chance of getting the online reviewer to retract the review. They'll either call them if they knew who they are. If they don't know who they are, then they will send them a response to review that is not attacking, but says, I'm sorry you had a bad experience. I'd really like to see if I can resolve your issue. We strive to offer the best products and services we can. Please call this 1-800 number. I'll talk to you. Now you've got an attack offline. They've called you. You are able to talk to them about their problem. That's where, as we were talking earlier, the customer service and the ability to offer refunds and like that comes into play. And then, you can ask them, if you're satisfied and would you mind removing your review? You can't have a program like that can, get the negative reviews taken down. If it's a full-fledged attack where it's a nefarious person like a competitor or someone else, then you can look more at the legal routes, such as lawsuits, cease and desist letters. We serve subpoenas to identify people. We get court orders to get them taken off the search engines and to get them removed. So that's kind of a broad overview of the online review space.
And broad, but very, very helpful. There was a lot of good tips there.
Thanks.
So that's really great for protection strategies. And that is there. When it comes to defamation, are there any other protection strategies that we haven't discussed that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think there is, for a lot of businesses, I think you want to take some basic steps, and this, Melissa. Take some basic steps to try and protect your search results. I think for most businesses, two important places to try and have positive information there, so that way a few negative things don't hurt you, are having web assets, so your Google search results and your other search engine search results have information that ranks high. So if someone puts negative information, it doesn't automatically fly up to the early search results. And then also the online review space. We just talked about the online review space, but on the search results, I think there's a number of, what I see companies doing is they've got websites, obviously, for their own company, but they've got not just one main website, but they have a bunch of subdomains. So it may be, Melissa Agnes is the main page, but Melissa Agnes is charity. Melissa Agnes is, like a subsidiary or something. Other things that you can have that your company does, or you can have other web assets, and those will end up ranking high. A lot of people also have different social media accounts, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. A lot of those have naturally high search rankings, so they'll get those to rank high. If you can get any good PR, get your name or business published in newspapers or other places that have naturally high domain authority, meaning they rank high in the search engines, all of those things will, kind of like the reviews, they'll put positive content in your search results. So if someone goes out and attacks you, it doesn't have near the impact it would if you didn't have that stuff there.
That's really good preventative and preparedness strategies. I'd just to clarify one thing for listeners is that the great reason to have, like Whitney just said, the you made the example of Melissa Agnes's charity, for example, .com. It's because each domain, each website, each domain name typically only has 1 to 2 ranking from that website on Google's homepage. Of course, Google is always changing their algorithms, and this may change. So that's why it's a good strategy to have, microsites that are relevant, and of course they need to have a strategy behind them. You don't just want to create noise, but that's why that one there particularly is a really good tactic. And in addition to, people are always asking me what social media channels to be on, of course, prior to crisis, because that's what I specialize in. And I'm always saying, it's okay, yes, Twitter is a great one because it's really, really important for crisis communication. YouTube is really great because the rankings, and it's a great optimization tool for optimizing your responses to a crisis if you're putting out video. And then my response to the rest is it depends on where your audiences are. So you don't want to be on every social channel with a strategy and actually working the social channels, but there are social channels or profile channels that you can be on, for example, like about.me. You don't actually need to do anything on about.me, but about.me typically ranks pretty well in the search engines. So it would be good to have a profile there, to have that show up in the first 2-3 pages of Google, just to be optimizing your search results with the content that you want, the messaging and the content that you want people to find, whether it's neutral or positive. It doesn't always need to be super positive. Neutral does the trick too. So just to kind of enhance the great advice that you just gave.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what other than defamation, what are some other things that people right now that you're finding that people want to get removed from the web, and ways to go about doing that?
I'm seeing a lot of photographs, people having embarrassing photographs, having nude photographs, having any of these photos sorts of photos they don't want. People are often trying to get those removed, and those can be easier to remove because there's a procedure under our U.S. law relating to copyright that if you take a photo, or you can get the person who took it to assign you the copyright, you can send notices to the websites and get them to take down the photographs. There's cyber investigation firms that you can use to try and quickly assimilate all the different places where the photographs have landed and give you the contact information. And so we can usually quickly take down a high number of photographs. We get a lot of situations where people want old news articles or newspapers. I mean, one of the things about the internet that has occurred that makes it very difficult for people is, let's say someone gets arrested, and then the charges get dismissed, but that arrest was reported in a newspaper. That newspaper article will then be up on the person's first page of Google. Somebody was arrested for, smoking pot or something, and then it was ultimately found they didn't even have any pot. And so, we often will approach newspapers and organizations, and if you can explain to them a change in circumstances that occurred, or that the charges were dismissed, we've had a lot of success there in getting that information removed from the internet. A lot of court publications. I think when you go to court, in a lot of cases, right now, a lot of the court decisions are being made public, and so you got to think through that. And we've had some relationships we've developed with some of these publishers that can at least get some of the stuff de-indexed or the court decisions taken out of the search results. We deal with Wikipedia pages. People don't like their biographies on Wikipedia, and Wikipedia has a policy that allows individuals that are not really well-known public figures, but they can go on and edit their own profile. So that's kind of another thing for executives to keep in mind. And last thing, there's a lot of different things we do is just helping people get stuff off the internet. But one of the things we work on frequently is trying to stop and remove, I say unauthorized sales, but third parties that are out there selling your client's products or selling our clients' products, and they're not really authorized to do so. They go and they get the products from some legitimate distributor. They get them at a bargain price, and then they take them and they put them up all for sale on the internet. And so we do a lot of programs for businesses to try and take those down as well. But those are some of the most common issues outside of reputation attacks that we see.
That's useful and interesting, both at the same time.
Yeah.
Whitney, thank you so much. And like I said at the start, so many people have questions around internet defamation, and sometimes it can feel overwhelming and impossible to deal with. And too many organizations don't realize that often the law is on their side, and there are attorneys out there who maybe you don't necessarily have to go the legal route, but there are strategies other than just trying to push it down, which can be very, very unsuccessful to take to help you protect your reputation from defamation. So thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation with me.
No problem. Thank you, Melissa. I'll talk to you soon.
Hi, everybody. Melissa here. I am such a dummy. I don't know how how I didn't ask Whitney, but I always ask everybody that I interview on this podcast to share where everybody can find and follow them. Of course, Whitney's links are below this podcast, no matter where you're listening to it from, whether that's from agnesday.com, the Crisis Intelligence blog, or from iTunes or from Stitcher. But additionally, I definitely recommend you check out Whitney, especially if you have defamation or online review takedown needs. So you can just Google Whitney C. Gibson. That's WhitneyCGibson. And you're going to get all of his links. And you can also follow him on Twitter, which is at Whitney C. Gibson. He has a great blog dedicated to in-house counsel and anybody else looking to learn more about removing online, negative online content, false online content. He's also a regular contributor to the Crisis Intelligence blog, so you could check out his articles there. Again, Whitney, I apologize for forgetting to ask you to share your stuff. So much great stuff for people to find, and everybody can find the direct links underneath this podcast. Thanks, and I look forward to talking even more crisis intelligence with everybody next week. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to this week's episode of the Crisis Intelligence Podcast. I release a new episode every Sunday, so if you haven't already done so, be sure to subscribe to the Crisis Intelligence Podcast over on the Crisis Intelligence blog at agnesday.com/blog, or on iTunes or on Stitcher. And while you're at it, head on over to iTunes and Stitcher, and would really appreciate it if you left us a review and your feedback. You can also follow me on Twitter at Melissa_Agnes. And if you'd like to reach out to me to ask me a follow-up question from this week or a past podcast, or if you'd like to discuss the possibility of having me come and speak at an upcoming event, then you could email me directly at magnes@agnesday.com. Thanks so much for tuning in this week, and I look forward to talking even more crisis intelligence with you next Sunday.